What's up, tribe? Good afternoon. How's it going? Uh, Give me a sec here. I'm gonna wait a second or two to see if anyone jumps on the live feed here. But today's my first episode, my first video of my Get Your Mind Right series. And now, if you didn't read this email, or I think I posted it, and I emailed about it, that moving forward, I want to create kind of these Fresno Fit lifestyle. I would call it the Fresno Fit lifestyle series, and what they are a series of 3 to 4 live videos that I'll shoot around a specific or certain topic. Up until now, every time I shot a video, it was kind of something random that I thought about at the moment, that I figured, it'd be a good topic to talk about on video. But moving forward, I really want to step it up and create kind of these series so that I can stay on topic or put more time and effort into a specific topic that I think you would really benefit from. Now, these ideas, these series are based off of interactions I have with members, or just kind of what I've noticed as being by being a trainer, a coach for the last 4.5 years. So today's topic, get your mind right. Now, what do I mean by get your mind right? Get your mind right is really understanding that that all our progress, our successes, or lack thereof, are really not necessarily a result of what we're doing or what we're not doing, but for a very large majority of people, actually for everyone, that success or that lack of success really starts right up here, right? It starts with us. It starts within our mind. It starts with our mindset. Hey, Rosie, I just saw you jumped on. So that's what I mean. Get your mind right. And I want to start with this series because anything that I go through moving forward, any other series, any other topic that I really dive into moving forward from here is going to be dependent. It's going to be dependent on you having the right mindset to be successful with whatever it is that you're looking to do, whether it be to lose weight, whether it be to tone up, whether it be to do something completely different from just exercise and fitness. All right, so whatever we move forward with, again, all of the success that you're going to have in it is going to be dependent on your mindset, on how you go into that specific change or that specific habit that you're looking to change. All right, does that make sense? So jumping right into the topic of the day today. And when I was kind of writing out my notes for these topics, I started off with the top, what I think is the top mental obstacle that we need to overcome, the top mindset obstacle that we need to overcome if we want to be successful. I probably should have started with like number 3, 2, 1. I should have kind of done a countdown so that by the end of the week it's number 1. But we're starting with the top number 1 mental obstacle today. So again, you might agree with me, you might not agree with me. That's not the point. The point is that, I'm presenting an idea to you that hopefully just gets you thinking. All right, it gets you thinking that, if it relates to you or if it sticks with you, then maybe you can really look deeper into this specific topic. All right, but if it doesn't, then that's okay too, because at the very least, I want you to have an open mind about the possibility that there could be some progress or some changes you can make within your own mindset, even if it isn't this specific topic that I'm going to talk about today. All right, but I truly believe that our success is really dependent on the mindset that we go into that change with, or into that new habit, or into whatever it is that you're looking to do. All right, so the number one mindset obstacle that you need to overcome if you really want to be successful is getting rid of your biggest critic. And that biggest critic is not your spouse, is not your parents. That biggest critic is not your friends. It's not, which by the way, I'll put that friends in quotations, because if you do have someone that you consider a friend criticizing you, I don't know how much a friend they really are. But that's a topic for another day. Point is, the biggest critic is no one other than yourself, right? Yourself. You're your own biggest critic. We're our own biggest critics. Let's be honest about that, right? I want you to understand something. You spend hours, maybe even minutes a day with other people, and sometimes not even every day, sometimes every other day, or even just a couple times a month or a year sometimes, right? And what someone tells us, what they think about us or their opinion about us, even though we hardly ever see them, right? That usually puts so much emphasis on that when it's really insignificant compared to the amount of time that we spend with ourselves. Does that make sense? So think about it. If you spend, just a couple minutes or hours a day with someone else, and you put so much weight on what they think about you, how much weight are you putting on what you think about yourself? If you spend 24 hours with yourself, does that make sense? So when we put so much time and emphasis and importance on what other people think about us, right? What I've noticed, and this again, what I've noticed is that we rarely sit down and think about and put, an emphasis on what we think about ourselves, even though we spend a lot more time with ourselves than we spend with other people. So what do you think about yourself? How do you talk to yourself? How do you talk about yourself? What are the things that you say to describe yourself? All of those things are a reflection of your own internal thoughts about yourself. Even if you say it as a joke, even if you say it with a joking tone, right? All of those things that come out of your mouth to describe yourself that might be negative are still those deep thoughts that you have about yourself. And I want you to understand something, right? Like all of those thoughts or the things that you say about yourself, you're either putting yourself down or you're picking yourself up. You're building yourself up. All right? But again, the majority of people don't sit down and think about that, and that rarely gets addressed. Right? And when it's not addressed, the problem with not addressing our own thoughts about ourselves, right, is that it doesn't matter what changes you make. It doesn't matter what habits you improve on. It doesn't matter what good habits you start taking on. It doesn't matter if you start exercising. It doesn't matter if you start eating healthy. It doesn't matter any of that. That stuff does not matter if you don't improve your own self-thoughts about yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, even if you do improve in certain habits and in certain areas, right, that negative mindset that you had is always going to pull you back to your old actions, to your old habits. And I truly, truly believe that, because I've seen it. I've seen it and I've experienced it. I've seen it. I've seen people make so much progress on the outside, right, because they changed the way they eat and they changed the way they exercise, but they didn't change the way they thought about themselves. And then, months later, sometimes even years later, they end up where they started, because again, that improvement was only superficial. That improvement was only on the outside. But the real improvement that needed to happen, right? The real improvement that needed to happen was on the inside. And when that doesn't happen, we always kind of revert back to our old habits. Does that make sense? So, again, now these are just kind of observations and observations that I've had over the last 4.5 years of working with people. But these are observations that I've really started understanding more and really kind of started studying more so that I can help more people this way. Because at the end of the day, there's no point in me giving someone a meal plan or telling them to work out 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a week if the real struggle, if the real improvement has to be up here, right? In how they think about themselves. Because at the end of the day, the other changes, the other habits aren't going to happen if we fix that first. Does that make sense? So, again, the biggest critic I saw a couple people jump on. The biggest critic I'm talking about, or the number one mental obstacle that we need to overcome to really be successful with our habit changes, with our lifestyle changes, is to silence our biggest critic, and that biggest critic is yourself. All right, because without doing that, it doesn't matter what outer changes you make, what other changes you make, what other habit changes you decide to do, because that negative self-talk is always going to pull you back to your old bad habits. All right, so that's why it's important to really overcome that mental obstacle. All right, and that's why I put it at number one, because like I mentioned, other changes are not going to happen, or at least they're not going to stay permanent, or they're not going to stick if we don't work on this first. Now, I want to be clear. Some people might not have this obstacle or this, problem to overcome, right? And that's great. You might have something else, though, that you do need to overcome. But like I mentioned earlier, I'm just pointing out this as a general kind of a common mindset obstacle that I've noticed amongst the majority of people that I've met with over the last 4.5 years. It might resonate with you or it might not resonate with you, but if it does, if you find yourself putting yourself down instead of picking yourself up, then this is definitely one area that you want to improve on as soon as possible. All right, or at least start working on it, start improving on it. All right. So there you have it. Now I want to give you a couple tips on what you can possibly do to overcome this obstacle. Okay, and now these tips. Now, full disclosure here also. Early in the video, I mentioned that this is something that I've experienced myself. Opening a business, starting a business, trust me, believe me. All right, even if you've never done it before, believe me, negative self-talk happens just about on a daily basis, right? It's a consistent struggle that I have to figure out how to overcome for myself every time that I decide to do something that doesn't have a specific kind of framework that I can copy. Does that make sense? So anytime I decide I want to do something, or I want to do something different that I haven't seen before, or something that comes specifically from me, which is essentially what I'm trying to do with everything moving forward, there's so much, it's negative self-talk in my own head that sometimes, or a lot of times, it really keeps me from giving it my 100% full effort in that one thing that I want to do, because I hold myself back. All right. So like I mentioned, like I'm not just here like to tell you stuff that I notice on other people, but this is a main struggle that I notice within myself anytime that I try to really take it to the next, take a step forward or make progress with myself or with Fresno Fair or whatever it is. So I'm right there with you. If this is an obstacle that you have, I'm right there with you. So, a couple tips to kind of help you out. Now, these tips that I'm going to give you, they're practical. All right. Now, these are not going to like right off the bat eliminate this obstacle for you. It's not going to fix the problem, right? You do have to sit down and you do have to put in a little bit of work on your end so that they can possibly work for you. And just like everything else that I've said, these 3 tips, they might resonate with you and you might want to try them, or they might not. And that's fine. All right. As long as I'm kind of starting to at least get you thinking within this certain topic, then that's all I really want. All right. But for those of you that do need some ideas of what you can possibly do to overcome this specific obstacle, I got 3 tips for you. Now, the very first thing you want to do, and this actually applies to just about any changes you want to make, and I've talked about this if we've ever sat down together in here in some kind of console, right? If you want to make any kind of change, any kind of habit change, first you have to understand and acknowledge where you currently are. So in this specific topic, first you want to acknowledge that there is some negative self-talk happening, right? Don't pretend like it's not there, right? Don't pretend like you don't talk down to yourself. Don't pretend like this isn't something you do. Right? Because in order for us to be ashamed of something, we have to keep it a secret, right? But if we don't keep it a secret, if we acknowledge it, then there's nothing we should be ashamed about. Does that make sense? So it's important to really acknowledge that this is an obstacle that you might need to fight, that you might need to overcome. All right, so that's the very first step. Really acknowledge that there is some negative self-talk there. All right, don't try to like put it through to the back of the back of your brain and pretend like it's not happening, or pretend like you don't do it, or whatnot, because you're embarrassed or whatever. If that's the case, then you're never gonna be able to overcome it. All right, so first acknowledge that there is some improvement that could be made in this area. All right, so the next thing, and actually kind of ties in with this still, is you want to acknowledge what the biggest negative thing you say or you think about yourself is. What is it? Now, there might be a couple different things that once you really sit down and think about it, you might say, you know what, well, I'm too lazy, or I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm too fat, I'm too out of shape, whatever. I don't like this about myself, I don't like that about myself, right? Whatever. There might be a couple of those things that you might say, but what's the one that, like, choose one of them, like really acknowledge one of them as the thing that you do more of, say more of, or think more of, and really focus on that thing in particular. All right. The main point is that you want to start making progress in one area, and don't overwhelm yourself with trying to change everything all at once. Does that make sense? So acknowledge it, don't pretend it's there, and really kind of narrow it down to one, maybe two things that you really need to work on and really need to acknowledge. All right. The second thing is really this part right here, the second tip. Identify what's good. Identify what you have good about yourself, what you do that's good, right? That is something that the majority of people I've noticed, we really kind of either don't acknowledge it, or we minimize it, right? Or we minimize it. And what I'm talking about here, and it could be something as simple as, you know what? I'm a nice person. I'm a nice person. Yeah, I might be overweight, but you know what? If you tell me, if you're a good friend of mine, you can rely on me to do whatever favor you want, right? Or whatever you need of me. Or I'm a great parent. Or, everything I do, I do it with my best. Right? Even though you do have some negative self-talk that happens, I truly believe that we all have, everyone, absolutely everyone, 100% of people have something good about themselves that they can acknowledge and that they can really kind of anchor to anytime you start thinking badly about yourself. And that's the main reason we want to acknowledge the good things. Not only to acknowledge them, but also to kind of use them as our anchors anytime we start thinking badly about ourselves, right? So, in my case, when I struggle with a certain idea, or I struggle with confidence to do something that I've never done before, or when I struggle with like these videos, like shooting these videos, it's taken me so long to do something like this, because I always talk myself down, like I don't know enough. Why would anyone listen to me? Or, like, who am I to like sit down and like and tell clients about these specific topics when I struggle with them myself, right? Like, who am I? Like, I've taken so long. I've held myself back so long because I talked myself down so many times. Anytime I wanted to take the step forward to do something like this. But then I started thinking about why I wanted to do it, right? And the reason I wanted to do it was to help more people. Was so that I can add more value, or try to add more value. So, I started thinking about, you know what? I'm a pretty good person. I'm a good person. I'm a good person that I want to do this so that I can add value to other people. Does that make sense? So I started anchoring to that thought every time I thought negatively about myself. So, or I started holding myself back, right? As soon as that negative thoughts start coming up, I started thinking, if I don't do this, if I don't take the next step, right, or if if I hold myself back from doing it, then you know what? I'm not going to be able to make the type of change I want to make, or I'm not going to be able to provide the type of help I want to provide to other people. But again, it's a result of me thinking of myself as a good person for wanting to do that. Does that make sense? So really acknowledge and identify that good thing or those good things about yourself, so that you can anchor to them anytime you start thinking negatively. All right. And then the last thing, this is kind of to help you identify these things. If you're thinking to yourself like this, or like, how do I even do that? You know, I'm not just going to sit down and think to myself. This is something I've done like on and off for, you know, the last 6-7 years, when I really started trying to make changes, not even just becoming a trainer, just in my own personal life. You know, if you don't know too much about me, I don't have the best background. I wasn't always like, I was pretty dumb. I did a lot of stupid things. I did a lot of dumb things, right? But when I started trying to change my life, this is something that I did to really help me overcome the negative mindset that I always carried with myself, and it was journaling. And you might do this, you might not do this. Some of you are thinking like, oh my God, like I'm not gonna sit down and like journal. Who does that? Again, I'm presenting some ideas to you. You can run with it and try it, or you cannot run with it, not try it, try something different, or not try anything and be where you are right now. And it's up to you to decide if that's what you want. Okay, so journaling. Now, why journal? Journaling, it really just allows you to put down and at least write down and acknowledge what you really think. Like I mentioned earlier, shame only happens if we keep it a secret, right? But if you're not ready to talk to someone about how you really feel or what you really think about yourself, writing it down gives you the opportunity to not keep it a secret, right? To write it down and acknowledge it. And sometimes when you just sit down and write for 5 minutes what your thoughts, what's going through your mind at that time, or what happened throughout the day, what thoughts ran through your mind, sometimes you start noticing a specific thought pattern that you didn't even know existed. So that's why journaling, and it could be something, I've done this a couple different ways. One way I do it is kind of like a brain dump, right? Just what's in my brain, like what am I thinking like at that moment, or what I thought about throughout the day. And those brain dumps are really, really, really honest, right? Because if you just write for 5 minutes without thinking about it, you could get real honest with yourself very quickly. And that's what you want, because like I said, sometimes you start noticing things that you might not have noticed before, or certain thought patterns you never thought even existed in your brain. All right, so that's one way. Another way of doing it was answering specific questions, like what did I accomplish today? What could I have done better? What can I do tomorrow? And like, what am I feeling, or something like that? Like four or five different questions. I really prefer the brain dump because that's a lot more honest. And you know, you could get real with yourself. All right, so journaling, it really allows you to acknowledge those negative self-thoughts. Now, on the other hand, while it allows you to acknowledge those negative self-thoughts you might not have realized were there before, it also provides the opportunity for you to build yourself up with acknowledging, or by acknowledging what I mentioned earlier, the good things about yourself, right? So it kind of has this balance. First, you kind of acknowledge, you know, the bad stuff, right? And then you acknowledge the good stuff. And the thing about journaling is that the more you acknowledge the bad stuff, you can't go on and on and on and on and on and on with the same thing. Does that make sense? You can always build up a positivity, but if you already have like if you talk yourself down negatively, you can only do that so much that positive thought starts overtaking it. And that's what you're looking to do by kind of doing that balance. Hey, Claire. So journaling is really, really important. Journaling is I would say, that one of the top things that I've personally done. Like I mentioned, this is something that I've done before. You can try it, not try it. You can try something different. But overall, the idea of this video is to present an idea for you and hopefully get you thinking of how it can apply to you or how it might not apply to you. But at the end of the day, I truly believe that if you want to be successful, if you really want to see permanent change, if you really want to make certain lifestyle changes, then it's gonna start. It has to start with changing your mindset, and changing your mindset has to do first and foremost with what you specifically and how you specifically think about yourself. So there you have it. That's my number one mental obstacle that I feel we need to overcome if we really want to reach our goals, if we want to be successful, and if we want to make it permanent. All right. And this isn't something that I talk just because I talk about just because I think it's a cool topic. This is something that I really truly feel, hey Katie, is a game changer, because it's something that I've experienced myself, and I continue to experience myself and struggle with myself. So there you have it. Now, I do want to welcome you to, please, if you do sit down and do any of this, share it with me, email it to me. I'd love to hear what you have to say. I'd love to know more about you. If there's certain areas or certain mindsets or certain thoughts that you haven't shared with me before, please feel free to reach out to me. That's absolutely 100% what I'm here for, to help out in any way that I can. So there you have it, everyone. I thought this video was going to take like 5 minutes. I don't know how long it's been. I don't see a clock on here, but I can definitely, for sure, oh, damn, it's been about 30 minutes. I guess I had a lot more to say than I thought. So there you have it. If you have any questions, post them on here. Thank you guys for watching. For those of you that jumped on, hopefully you have time to kind of go back on the video and kind of see everything that I talked about. On Wednesday, I'm going to give you the number two obstacle, mental obstacle that we need to overcome if you want to be successful. And to help you really get your mind right. All right. I'll talk to you guys later, tribe. Make it a better than great day. And I'll see you in sessions if you haven't been in yet.